I've warned you about this Mike Flynn case. Mike Flynn, of course, the national security advisor, former national security advisor for the Trump administration, a decorated U.S. patriot, 3-star general, who was falsely prosecuted by the tyrants and the Mueller team for lying to the FBI about a conversation about sanctions that he never lied about because he was never asked about sanctions. So the Department of Justice threw out the case, and the judge in the case will not let the Department of Justice throw the case out because he's an Obama judge. He's not really a judge. He's a politician in a black robe is what he said. This guy's not he is a gyno, a judge in name only. He's not a judge. He may be appointed a judge, but based on the principles of how judges actually act, Judge Sullivan is not, in fact, a judge. That's why I always call him, air quotes, Judge Sullivan, because he's not a real judge. Judge Sullivan never disappoints. I covered yesterday what happened. Judge Sullivan, who's like a litigant in this case now, will not let the Department of Justice dismiss the case against Flynn. Why? Because he wants the Flynn case to drag on till after the election, hoping Joe Biden wins so Flynn can be re-prosecuted because Judge Sullivan's not a judge. He just doesn't like Flynn. It's personal and political because he's an Obama judge. Well, there's a piece of National Review. Great update on this by the terrific Andy McCarthy. I warned you about all of this stuff, what Sullivan's up to. And McCarthy goes into a little bit more detail about the devious plot I think this guy's putting together. Piece will be up in the show notes today. With election looming, Judge Sullivan will drag out the Flynn case. That's the title of the National Review piece. Let's go to screenshot number 1. First, ladies and gentlemen, this is all politics. Judge Sullivan is not a principled man. He's not acting as a judge. The guy's a hack. He's a politician, totally. From the McCarthy piece. Nothing prevents this judge from acting on the case now. So the case was thrown back to him from the appeals court. He could dismiss this today. Keep in mind, there's no prosecutor. The Department of Justice wants to throw this case out. There's no crime here. They've already acknowledged it. Sullivan knows the parties would not object, and they want a quick resolution. And the court doesn't need a status report. Sullivan's now taking 3 weeks. He's saying, hey, listen, we need a status report. He's just delaying. Sullivan also knows the status of the Flynn case like the back of his hand. The DOJ has moved to dismiss. Flynn concurs in that motion. And even though Sullivan should not have permitted and appointed third parties to intervene in the case, he did so. And they've already filed submissions. Sullivan just needs to hold a hearing if he really thinks he needs one and rule on the motion. So what happened? The case was thrown back to Sullivan from an appeals court that punted on it. Sullivan can make the decision right now. Accept the DOJ's conclusion. They're not going to prosecute. And move on. Get rid of this case. He will not do it. He is delaying. He is delaying and delaying and delaying. He's saying, I need more time. I need more time. I need a few more weeks. Why does he need more time? What's he really doing? McCarthy sums this up absolutely beautifully. Well done, Andy. Check this out. Here's his real plan. Sullivan knows Flynn and the DOJ want the case dismissed. Flynn for obvious reasons, and the DOJ to affirm the executive's authority to prosecute. Or not. The judge also knows that if the former Vice President Biden wins the election, a Biden DOJ is sure to change course and withdraw the motion to dismiss. Thus, to ensure the case against Flynn is dropped, it would be necessary for President Trump to pardon Flynn before Biden takes office. Oh, wait, it goes on. I saw that. That is not what Flynn wants. Flynn wants to be vindicated by having the prosecuting authority, the DOJ, drop it. Sullivan can't prevent a pardon, but he figures he can arrange things so the historic record is that Flynn fully admitted his guilt twice in court, and those guilty pleas were extinguished only due to a politically motivated pardon, not with a judicial imprimatur. Let me translate that for you.
Thank you.
I figured that. Sullivan's delaying this case knowing President Trump is not going to let Mike Flynn go to jail for a crime everybody now acknowledges never, not only he didn't commit, that never happened. He did not lie about sanctions to the FBI on Russia. He was never asked about them at all. We have the transcript. No crime was committed. It's not that Flynn didn't rob a bank. There was no bank robbed. Sullivan absolutely knows this. He knows he has to drop this case. He figures if he delays it long enough, and a Biden Justice Department comes in and announces, say during a transition, that they're likely to reverse the decision to drop the case. You follow me, Joe? In other words, no, we're going to re-prosecute Flynn. What's Trump going to do? Trump, of course, is not going to let his guy dangle in the wind. He's going to pardon him. Full pardon.
Sure.
Sullivan wants to make sure the historical record is that Democrats can then go back and say, oh, he was just pardoned because it was politically motivated. We never threw that case out. And we had a good case. If the Biden Justice Department would have got in there, we would have definitely had Flynn lying about the sanctions he was never asked about. You get what I'm saying? This is all politics, just like the Kleinsmith story we talked about yesterday. They want to make sure Kleinsmith, did you doctor evidence? Yes, but I didn't mean it. They're giving the media narratives. No, Flynn was really guilty. Trump just pardoned him. He was really guilty. If we would have went to court on that in the Biden DOJ, we would have had him. All narratives, all the time. Sullivan is fully enmeshed in the political demagoguery and the nonsense. This is not a legitimate judge. He's a fake. He's a total fraud. He is delaying this thing, praying for a pardon. Now you may say, Dan, you've called for a Flynn pardon, and I do today. Because, ladies and gentlemen, a pardon is a legitimate constitutional process. What's happening to Mike Flynn in the judicial branch of government right now is not. So Judge Sullivan can cry and whine like a baby all he wants. Oh my gosh, Mike Flynn's going to be pardoned. That's so terrible. Look what happened. We would have really because he's not the judge. He's like the prosecutor himself. But the bottom line is everybody with a straight face following this and a sane mind and connecting neurons together understands that Mike Flynn was the subject of one of the ugliest political prosecutions in American history. And the only legitimate political process that went on was the president's unquestioned constitutional authority to pardon people wronged by the Justice Department, or the judicial system, excuse me. I still believe he should be pardoned today. I know a lot of you disagree. I get emails on this all the time. Some of them are fiery. Dan, let the process work out. Folks, there is no process. I'm sorry, genuinely sorry you believe that. I'm not kidding. I'm not trying to be condescending. I value your opinion. People reach out to us all the time in email. That's why I read them. This is not a process. A process implies order, does it? Does it or does it not? A process requires order, a legitimate process. Order here has not been followed at all. You have a judge acting as a litigant in a case. He's been ordered to drop, and the rules demand he drop it, and he still refuses to drop it. And you want to continue to play this game because why? I don't get it. You want to box in a boxing match where the guy's in there with like a 22-inch blade stabbing you, and you've got 20-ounce gloves, and you're like, the process, ref, jump in. Jump in. You're dying. You're bleeding out. There's no process. A pardon is a legitimate process written into our Constitution. This is not. I don't care what the left says anymore. Believe me, they don't care what we say. They just make stuff up. They're already preparing for a, quote, street fight after the election, and you want to play tiddlywinks with them? We may lose the media narrative. The media, you think the media cares?
You just heard Dan Bongino.